The giant never expected this. He thought he was the strongest in the world thanks to his gluttony skill. One day, a birdman took his legs and arms, and the protagonist, to defeat him, picked up his severed arm and ate it alive. Awesome. Truly, you are what you eat. It just happened. The protagonist and his team traveled far to the human territory. I didn't expect that. As soon as I entered the city gate, I was blocked by humans outside. After all, in their eyes, goblins are no good. Luckily, the merchant sister duo helped me, allowing the protagonist to successfully enter the town. The protagonist also kept his previous promise, letting these human girls decide whether to stay or leave. Ultimately, they were originally kidnapped during their journey. Then they were protected by the protagonist. Afterward, he spent the whole day exploring the town with the girls. The protagonist wanted to stay in the town longer. He transformed into his past self, so he planned to investigate the situation alone. Now he walks the streets without any worries. However, at that moment, a group of thugs targeted him from behind. They surrounded him, blocking the way. The protagonist acted without hesitation and took them all down. In the end, he gained their respective abilities. But just as one wave subsided, another arose. The male lead overheard important information. It turns out this blonde knight's master was kidnapped, but he has already paid for the ransom. However, they not only refused to release them, but also demand triple the price. After hearing this, the knight couldn't stand it anymore. He declared that he would use force to rescue the princess. However, this knight turned out to be too weak. He was easily pinned down by several people. Just as they were about to strike him down, the protagonist quickly blocked the villain. With a whip kick, he took down everyone. He then sent a clone to follow them. The reason was to scout their base. He then returned to the house. The knight said news of the princess staying here was not public. The playful princess managed to escape from the guards. As a result, she was kidnapped by the villains. Just after he finished speaking, the protagonist had already found their hideout. He decisively arrived at their location. He dealt with them in less than 2.5 seconds. He also successfully found the kidnapped princess. But while the protagonist was examining the book, he discovered that the kidnapping was a conspiracy within the kingdom. He then went to the door. He urged the knight to keep this a secret. He explained that the kidnapping was premeditated. Unexpectedly, the knight thought it was better to tell the king everything. Only this way could similar events be prevented in the future. But he hasn't finished speaking. A demon beside him held a magic sphere. He began to use hypnosis on the knight to make him forget what happened before. Until the next day, the clan sent a message. It turned out the protagonist's son was born, and he was born with a strong demonic lineage. Though the protagonist was happy, he had to ask the human girl for her response today. I didn't expect them to resolutely stay by the male lead's side. At this moment, the princess suddenly showed up, though she already knew that the male lead saved her, and she wanted to hire him to escort her to the capital, but the male lead refused her outright. After all, the princess had her own guard. Unexpectedly, the princess declined. To her, they were all utterly boring. It seemed like this wasn't a solution. The protagonist had to take him inside for a proper lesson. However, it clearly was of no use, but the knight knew it would be safer with the protagonist as his escort. So he was willing to offer a gold bar as a reward. Upon hearing this, the girls behind him jumped up one by one. They urged the protagonist to take the request. You know, a gold bar could buy a small country. And so it went. Tempted by the money, the protagonist agreed to escort. But when leaving, the princess actually abandoned her guards. This made the male lead very angry. If they send the princess back like this, he would definitely be seen as a kidnapper. However, the male lead agreed. If anything happens, he won't take the blame. Next, they quickly rode in the centipede vehicle he built until it was deep into the night. There are 2 paths to take. One is the shortest, along the cliff, but it's also the most dangerous, because strong creatures lie ahead. They are not only fast, but their claws are poisonous. And if you're unlucky, you might meet a powerful leader. He is the king of the eagles. Others have heard this legend. Everyone hopes to detour and avoid such beasts. Upon hearing this, the male lead immediately decided to meet the other party. By the next day, they were attacked by a group of bird people. But these small kalami easily handled them, and the bird people became their breakfast. After finishing their meal, they continued on their journey. However, at that moment, they fortuitously ran into the Eagle King. Then, in the next second, the protagonist had one arm severed by the Eagle King, watching the opponent spin around him at high speed. But the protagonist stood steady as a rock. Everything was under his control. He picked up his own arm and swallowed it in one go. Instantly, the lost arm and a leg regenerated. So next, the protagonist should get serious. I fully understand how strong you are. So the main event is next. You probably can't understand. Just tangled in a line. Why does my body feel so heavy? Still trying to flap my wings and escape. I can't do it anymore. After taking down the Eagle King, the protagonist discovers there's a spirit stone inside, and its rarity is that it takes 100 of these leader monsters to have one. Next, let's grill this Eagle King into skewers. While it's delicious, it also grants the protagonist various powers. The key point is the wings that grant unrivaled spear element. It's a spear element. This means the protagonist's exosuit now is not only incredibly defensive, but also fast. Next, continue to the capital of the kingdom. Then, we should meet the 8 heroes of humanity.